Good morning. Welcome to Newsmakers. Over the last 10 days, President Clinton has called on Americans to focus their attention on the ways that the issues of race and racism impact American life. First, he appointed a 7-member commission headed by historian John Hope Franklin, one of my personal heroes, to guide this process. Then, in a graduation address to the University of California at San Diego, the president said that now, when America is not in the midst of a racial crisis, is the time to renew the effort to talk together about our differences as well as our similarities.
We have talked at each other and about each other for a long time. It's high time we all began talking with each other.
Although President Clinton's appeal has been interpreted as a call to begin a discussion, in Cincinnati as well as in communities across America, this discussion is already well underway in homes and offices. I am joined this morning by 3 people who are actively involved as both participants and organizers of local interracial discussion efforts. Shanna Sanders is the project director of Community, an initiative by the National Conference of Christians and Jews, which is sponsored by the Synergy Corporation. Shanna is a 21-year employee of Synergy on loan to Community. Jerome Manigan is a teacher at Schwab Middle School, a participant in a community living room dialogue, and is now a group facilitator. And Kimberly Myazawa works with J.B. Reid Associates, focusing on workplace diversity training. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you.
Shanna, could you just briefly tell us what the goal and the basic structure of the community initiative is?
The basic goal of the community program is to bring diverse groups of people together in someone's living room, that's why we call them living room dialogues, to get to know one another a little better. We have opportunities to talk to our neighbors about issues of what's going on in our area. You live next door to me, I may talk to you about the sanitation department coming in, but I may not have an opportunity to sit down with you and talk about how do you feel about issues of racism? How do you feel about issues of prejudice? How do you feel about stereotypes about your particular ethnic background? Share my views with you on my perceptions of stereotypes and of my ethnic background. And that's what community is about. It allows people an opportunity to sit down with one another, talk about some of these issues, air our opinions and our feelings.
How long has this project been going on, and how many people have participated so far?
The project has been going on now for about 2.5 years. Its origins are in the Summit on Racism that Bishop Herbert Thompson held about 2.5–3 years ago. And, excuse me, to date we've had about 250 people go through since the inception. In '97 we are really stepping up our efforts though. In '96 we had a total of 9 groups altogether. In '97 so far we are up to our 17th group.
Jerome, you were in one of those groups. Tell me a little bit, not necessarily names, but the types of people who were in your original group and how many people were involved. How long did this last? Give us some parameters here.
I've been involved in 2 groups. The first time around as a participant, this time around as a facilitator. The group in which I was a participant member included people from throughout the city. We had executives from the universities, from Xavier University and the University of Cincinnati. We had people who were engaged as business leaders. We had people who owned their own businesses. We had teachers. And then we had housewives, just your everyday citizen involved, him or herself, in the group in which I was involved.
Did those people know each other before the group started, or is this really just coming together, meeting and sitting down and beginning this discussion?
In the group that I was in as a participant, there were some people who had prior awareness of people who were in that group, but I think that it was just by coincidence that they found themselves in the same group. I think that the people who were involved were people who sincerely wanted to involve themselves in discussions that would allow them to grapple with some of the issues that face our community, the city, the world, to have an opportunity to hear from others, their thoughts, and to begin some dialogue that would allow us, if at this time it was nothing more than a prototype, a model for an inclusive community.
Kimberly, you come from a different background. You're a professional working for a consulting firm that helps businesses put together workplace training. How would a business's concern maybe be a little bit different than the sort of program, those living room dialogues, and how would it be the same?
Well, it'd be the same in that the ultimate objective is to get people to talk to one another. And I think, as President Clinton said, we need to talk to each other, with each other, not at each other. And so a workplace-focused initiative would be consistent with the organization's or the corporation's goals and objectives, its overall mission, if you will. And the diversity initiative or the race initiative within the organization would have to be in line with that. So it really comes down to taking a look at why the organization is engaged in this, and the ultimate objective being to best utilize all of the workforce to the benefit of the corporation.
Do you find that companies are seeking this sort of program out, or is this something they're being pushed into? What's the mood out there?
Yeah. Typically, companies are very proactive about it. Typically, companies are seeing the Workforce 2000 statistics are out there. The workforce doesn't look the same. Their customer base or consumer base doesn't look the same. And companies are seeking this kind of programming and training so that they can be proactive and better prepared to meet these changing demographics and not be caught in a reactive or in a worst case scenario, be left behind.
Jerome, you were saying that in your group, there was a real effort to try to grapple with serious issues.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I think is probably on a lot of people's minds, listening to President Clinton. You know, is this a call just to get together and feel good? Or did you find that over a period of time, people in your group could grapple with some of the tough issues, like affirmative action, for example, and express differences and really tell each other what they felt, what they thought?
I think so. In the group that I am currently facilitating, I said to Shanna just the other day that it was very interesting to me how one of the group members brought up the issue of slavery. And some of the people in the group, I think their attitude was, let's not go there. Let's not talk about slavery. That was many, many, many years ago, and it's over, it's resolved, and let's not deal with that. A few days later, we hear on a national level this talk about an apology. We hear talk about looking at this issue of slavery and seeing how we can move to healing. And that's exactly what the person who was introducing that concept to the group was moving to. What I have discovered in subsequent meetings of that group is that they are very willing to look at slavery, to talk about slavery, to understand what slavery means to African Americans 100+ years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. So yes, people are willing to grapple with very serious issues, and no, it's not a feel-good session, not at all.
So in other words, in that particular example, there was a topic that was introduced, some people wanted to back away, but then came back to it
Exactly.
after they had a chance to think about it.
Exactly. And not only came back to it, but came back to it with a commitment to work through it. The dialogue sessions are set up for three-hour meetings. The group that I'm currently working with has already committed itself to 4 sessions. We have always gone beyond the 3 hours, and it is my expectation that this particular group will be together for many, many more sessions because we've got people who really want to understand.
Shanna, some people have said in response to President Clinton, and here you are on the ground already doing what he's calling for, that, gee, this isn't necessary. We dealt with this issue during the Civil Rights Movement, that this is creating these sorts of dialogues. It's just bringing up issues that really have already been solved. What's your response to that?
My response to that, excuse me, is yes, there are issues that have been discussed over and over and over again, true enough. But our opinions, our feelings, our viewpoints are constantly evolving. I may not necessarily feel the same about something today as I did 10 or 15 years ago. I may have a new awareness of a particular issue. I may not have an opportunity to share that with other people. And our living room dialogues give you an opportunity for new awareness. If you do have an opinion about something, maybe you have not had the opportunity in the past to be exposed to someone else's opinion about it. Yes, you may have dialogued with other people. You would not have dialogued with this particular group of people. You would not get to know them on this particular level. And I think in getting to know anyone, even though you may be involved in diversity training, perhaps in your workplace, a person like Kimberly in the job that she does, you're always going to learn something new when you sit down and talk to someone that you didn't know an hour ago.
One of the things is that on one level, when we talk about issues in this arena, we can talk about the national policies and talk about laws that can be passed and have this sense that great strides can be made in a hurry. What you're holding out here is a very slow, person-by-person process, agonizingly slow. Is it just as important? How does it fit in with making those big policy decisions on the national level?
The way we see it, the way the National Conference sees it, and also the way Synergy sees it as being the corporate sponsor of this, is a trickle-down effect. The more people we have go through the process, the more people like Jerome that we can get involved in this process and that can talk to other people about the process, can talk to other people about the value of this process, the value of just sitting down and talking with someone instead of, as Kimberly said, talking at someone, which is what we've been doing for so long. We can take those feelings and spread them out into the community and tell people, there's something out there that you can do. It's a very small effort. However, it's going to reap big rewards, we feel.
Yeah, it seems to me that back in the 60s and early 70s, I know I was involved in lots of these sorts of groups, maybe not living room dialogues exactly, but then it seems to me that maybe as a culture we stopped talking with each other about these issues. We talked about a lot of other things, but we didn't talk about these issues. So maybe that's a call to come back together. Kimberly, one of the things that strikes me is that right now the way the president has presented this, and maybe the way that we in Cincinnati might see this, is that it's a black-white thing. But if we were in Seattle or Miami or Chicago or New York, this would be a very different dynamic. This wouldn't just be African American and white. It would be people from lots of different backgrounds. What we should be doing right now to begin thinking, even though we're in Cincinnati, begin dealing with that more complex situation?
Well, I think the way that we look at diversity is that we define it very broadly. It's not just race or gender. It's everything from thinking styles to sexual orientation and anything you can think of to describe a human being. And we should be looking at those issues in addition to race. But the history of the country is that race and gender will always be an issue. And as Shanna said, we've been talking about this for a long time. Yes, we've made progress, but along the way we've raised the standards. So I think we have to continue to talk about this in the context of the other diversities that exist and in light of the changing demographics. So Cincinnati is becoming more diverse beyond black and white.
Well, as Jerome said, Your group keeps finding that it needs more time. I can't believe it, but we're out of time. I do want to say, though, if people want to get involved in the community project, what number should they call?
287-3433.
And they will be able to get someone who can direct them to a group.
Yes.
Well, thank you all very much for being on Newsmakers. As this process goes on over the next year, I hope that we can have you back. Thank you.
Thank you.
The shooting of Lorenzo Collins by Cincinnati and UC police officers last February has fueled an ongoing debate in the community. Over the past 4 months, leaders of the black community and members of the police have spoken out, loudly and sometimes angrily. Stay tuned. After the break, we will hear from a spokesperson for those most immediately affected but rarely heard, a man suffering from mental illness who is working with the police to review their policies. Welcome back. 2 weeks ago, we devoted an entire Newsmakers to the police community controversy that has festered since Lorenzo Collins' killing. Reverend Damon Lynch Jr. and Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth for the African American community were on the show, while Pete Ritter, the president of the FOP, spoke from the police perspective. During that discussion, I expressed frustration with the seeming lack of communications between the city and the police on the one side and community groups on the other. After the program, I received a call from Urban Waldbillig, who reminded me that in this case, as in most cases, there is more than two sides to an issue. I am joined by Mr. Waldbillig, who is the chairman of the Mental Health Consumers Network. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Newsmakers.
You're welcome.
Can you tell me a little bit about what the Mental Health Consumers Network is?
It's an agency funded by the Mental Health Board for consumers. It's made up of consumers for consumers. We're an advocacy group. We advocate for consumers' rights and for consumer causes.
Now, when you say consumers, you mean people who
In the mental health system, they title the mental health patients consumers.
Okay. And when you say you advocate for what goal? What's in general sense, what's your goal?
That the people out there realize that we're in the community, that we might be your next door neighbor. One in four people in this community is mentally ill. We advocate for our rights in hospitals, in the community, in our settings, and our housing.
Okay. So a wide variety of things.
Variety.
In relationship to this Lorenzo Collins incident, on the one level, this has been an incident that involved a mental health patient and ended disastrously. But it also, in the discussion that has occurred since then, although that's always mentioned, I feel it's sort of been lost a bit. From your perspective as a chairperson of the network, what do you think the issues are here as the community tries to look at and understand this issue?
That's a hard question. I think mental health issues is probably the last taboo in this society. I think people are scared of people who have mental health problems, and we have to get the word out to the community that we are not violent. Most of us are not violent. Most of us do take our medicine. Most of us are productive citizens in the society. We don't roam the streets trying to hurt people. I worked at the Lewis Center for a year, and a big topic out there was walkaways. But I did study on it, and there's not been one incident of violence by the people who walked away. In fact, when I worked out there, I was amazed that they never asked the people why they walked away.
Even after they walked away, they didn't try to...
And after they asked them the question, why they walk away, the incidents went down.
Now, in this situation, though, with Lorenzo Collins, who actively tried to escape, ran away, did more than walked away, ran away, and picked up a brick and showed some violent behavior. From your perspective, what's your reaction to the way the police handled that?
Well, at first, I became angry. It was just my tendency, because I'm a vocal advocate you know, and I found that when you express your anger in a positive manner, that you get results. I was amazed and surprised that the new safety director, Mr. Ryan, actually called me and asked me to meet with him. But before I met with him, I called the Human Relations Commission of the city, because I worked with them before on mental health causes, and asked that we could call a committee together of police officers and community leaders and see what we can do to stop this from happening from now on.
And was Safety Director Ryan's call, you think, prompted by that call to the Human Relations Commission? Or do you think he was calling on his own?
His call was prompted by a news article that said I was an angry advocate and I wanted action done.
When he called, what did he invite you to do?
To meet with him privately to talk about what can be done.
And have you taken him up on that invitation?
Yes, I met with him several times, about 3 times.
I expressed on that show several weeks ago that it seemed to me that there wasn't much communication going on. Do you feel that these opportunities you've had to meet with a city official, in this case the safety director, have been honest, fruitful discussions? Do you feel like there's progress being made?
Some. We're nobody's ever happy, but some. He's been very honest and open. Manette Cooper met with us several times. Jerome has called me personally and asked questions about what we're doing. I met with the mental health review team one time. It's been behind the scenes, and it's been behind the scenes on purpose.
Because by keeping it behind the scenes, you keep it out of the
press,
glare of news.
And also a lot of our consumers are afraid of the media because they're afraid to be identified. I'm a mental health consumer, but I came out of the closet in '92 and started speaking up. And a lot of families are afraid to let their neighbors and even other family members to know that their brothers, sons and daughters are mentally ill. It's a scary thing when you tell somebody you're mentally ill, because it's a taboo, you know.
When you talk to the safety director and to other officials at the city, what are you asking from them? How do you want the police to respond in that kind of situation?
Well, it's been several shootings in almost 7 years, and all the training has been done by mental health professionals. And since we're starting to take a voice in our own way, we're asking to be on committees, we're asking to have a voice in our training, our treatment and all this stuff. I asked, could mental health consumers take part in the training? And that's what the committee was formed for. We're going to start teaching policemen about us, and we hope to learn about them. I went to the police academy, Citizen Police Academy, and took their course, and I was amazed at some of the stuff that was taught.
So you're looking for an opportunity for consumers to speak directly to the police as they're going through their training,
right,
not through the mental health professionals. That's a screen that maybe isn't so good?
This is not going to be well liked by the mental health community, but a lot of professionals are not professional in their training. We've been hurt by a lot of mental health professionals. There's a lot of good people out there, but there's also some bad eggs in the basket, and we have to empower ourselves and start speaking up for ourselves, and let the policemen know and the community know, black and white or who they are, that we are not violent and we are good people and we can take care of ourselves. But give us a chance. The gay community gets to tell the policemen about themselves. Why can't the mental health consumers tell them? Policemen about themselves? We hope to do a video, maybe, and not only teach the recruits, but teach the entire police force.
We're almost out of time. If someone wanted to get in touch with your network, what telephone number could they call?
The network is 221-7755.
So 221.
7755.
Okay, the number on the screen says
warm line.
Warm line.
We operate a warm line, which is not a hotline.
Oh, okay. And that's 931 warm.
If a consumer needs have a problem, wants to talk to another fellow consumer, he can call the warm line.
Okay. Thank you very much for being with us.
You're welcome.
And we appreciate you being here. Join us again next Sunday morning for another 12 Newsmakers. We may talk to the people whose names are in the headlines or to the grassroots people like those this morning who rarely are featured on the evening news but are working to make this a truly livable city.